Hello, and welcome into the show, all of you out there on YouTube. If you were big fans of our last episode of Twin Peaks, I hope you're a big fan of this one too. So let's start our recordings. I'm starting my own now.
I have two.
E3.
Alrighty. So I'm going to count you down, and then we're going to clap. So, all right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let me get my notes over, and we will be going. Hello, and welcome to the show, probably the world's best TV review podcast. Welcome to episode 51. We will be reviewing the 2022 Paramount Plus sci-fi fantasy series set 237 years into our future aboard the Starship Enterprise. It appears that hijinks is the most logical course of action. Today on the show, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. I'd like to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I am Jay, and I am joined today by my two Hall of Famers, Aaron.
Beat me up.
And Tony.
Hello.
Welcome, gentlemen. It has been a while since we've done a mainline episode of the show, and it's been quite a bit since we have visited the unofficial scoreboard. So I would like to take a little trip over there and inquire, gentlemen, what have you been watching? Any entries on the unofficial scoreboard today?
I will have to reach back a little bit. I will say me and Chrissy just started the final season of Stranger Things. And just because we're kind of moving into the fall season, starting getting in the mood, and we kind of missed the train whenever that dropped. So luckily we've avoided all spoilers. We don't know anything about how it ends, so we're excited about that. But reaching back, Chrissy had to remind me what we were watching back when we started the Twin Peaks kind of marathon, because that kind of changed our viewing habits for the summer. But we had finished 9 Perfect Strangers, which was a Hulu original series. That was interesting. It was very interesting. It was a show about 9 people who have like some type of issue with their life, and they're going to like some type of retreat to deal with whatever their trauma or, depression or whatever it is that they're dealing with is. And it's run by this Australian lady who had like a near-death experience, and she's like basically like dosing them with drugs, right? Like that's trying to get them to go over their issues. But it was really, really interesting. It was really kind of an interesting take. I think it's definitely a part of this movement to kind of change the way we look at like psychedelics and different types of drugs that are being used for type of therapy. But this was a little bit more like, Wild West person doing it on their own, type show. So there were some crazy things that happened. But the cast was phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal. It was very, very well done. I think it's Nicole Kidman, Melissa McCarthy, Michael Shannon, like fantastic casting. So I'd recommend it. It's interesting. It's based off of a book, kind of going over the same name, but it was interesting. I was left kind of like I don't know how I feel about this at the end, but I definitely think that it was one of those shows that's designed to try and get you thinking about different ways of addressing mental health and things like that.
Tony?
Yes, I guess I'll go through the things I've watched. I watched Nope most recently. That was pretty good. I haven't really seen any of Jordan Peele's movies, so I don't know how it compares to like Get Out or Us or his other
I thought it was
films,
the best. And personally, I like Get Out was very good. I didn't care for Us. That one was a bit weird, but this one, I thought Nope was brilliant. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I really liked. I was like, it's a horror movie, but I thought like, man, this is a really great like alien movie. Like, I mean, everyone's seen the previews where it's like about a UFO or whatever, so I don't think that's very spoilery. But I was like, wow. I felt kind of like, I don't know what other movies are like. I kind of got like a Quentin Tarantino vibe with kind of broken into Not
pieces.
quite chapters, but yeah, like pieces.
It's very he handles tension very well. Like that's something that as a director I admire about him, is I feel like he knows how to play with the tension, draw things out, make you feel like it's impending almost. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it
It
was really good
was
build
really
up,
good.
and like the way, I don't know, like something felt kind of dreamy about the way the ship moved. Like I thought that was really well done. It's
Yeah.
just like half obscure, but you can see it. So that was really good. I like that one a lot. I don't know if I would what kind of rating I would give it. Bullet Train, I watched that movie too. I would
Interesting.
Oh, tell me about
I
Bullet
would
Train.
Yeah, I'm curious about this.
I just wait for streaming maybe on that one. I don't know if I'd
Oh
go
yeah?
to the theater. Jay, if you
Wait
want
for
a
the
dose
DVD.
of if you want a dose of like, I mean, it was fun, it was entertaining, it was a good little kind of like, I don't know if y'all watch like Jeremy John's reviews of movies. I usually watch his reviews before movies and stuff, and he's kind of like, it kind of reminded him of those little string of movies like Smoking Aces and those kind of movies where it's just like a bunch of
The Guy
different
Ritchie
random,
films.
yeah, like random characters that kind of likable. So there was likable characters in it, but I wouldn't say like the plot or anything
I
was outstanding.
was gonna say
But
when
it
I
was
first
fun.
saw the trailer for it, it reminded me of all of those movies: Rock and Roller, Lock, Stock, and Two
Yeah.
Smoking Barrels. Every single one of them. I just thought it was the next one of those movies.
Yeah, so it's entertaining, but I don't know if I'd go see it in theaters. If you want a little micro hit, Jay, it starts off in like Tokyo, and it's the bullet train from Tokyo to Kyoto. So
Ooh.
we rode that
Shinkansen.
one a little bit, yeah. So that was yeah, wait for streaming on that one. And then shows, I'm living with a friend and his wife right now. Well, I'm gonna be living with him going forward, but his wife's in school, so it's like we start really good shows, but we can't watch them because she gets like sucked into them instead of doing her schoolwork. So, but we watched we watched The Boys season 3. Man, that show's just crazy. I mean, like, I don't know if you haven't watched it. Carl Urban is worth maybe watching the whole show just because he does a
We
great job in that one.
we did season 1 for Show a while back. I don't think we ever came back and did season 2 though.
Correct.
It's super ridiculous and just like way over the top. I watched Terminal List, and I'm not like a gigantic Chris Pratt fan, but that was actually a really good show.
Mm.
I guess it's based on a book.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it's just based on a book that's written by a Navy SEAL, and it doesn't really like hold your hand very much. Like it just kind of like throws out a bunch of acronyms and like terms that I guess it doesn't like go into.
Expects you to know the stuff already.
Sorry about that. I dropped out of the call, but
Oh.
Skype call. But that one was actually really good. If you just want kind of like a military-ish revenge story.
I feel like Chris Pratt gets a little too much hate. Like I don't understand why. I've read some of the stuff that people complain about. I find it to be silly, but I can't not see him as Andy from Parks and Rec. You know,
That's hard. His big break was in comedy, but he's been doing like, yeah, like I don't know. It's Andy and Star Lord for me, basically.
Yeah.
What I see when I see him. But he did a
same
good
here.
job, and it's a good show. I think I've run out. I started The Old Man, but that was a sacrifice on like my friend's wife was getting too sucked into it, so we had to stop watching it. But that was like an FX show with Jeff Bridges, and it looked pretty good. He's like an ex-CIA hitman and has ties to like Iraq. I don't know. It seemed really interesting. We watched the first 2 episodes. It was really.
You're just gonna have to start like running the sound through headphones and like watching it through with your headphones on, so she can't get sucked into it.
I mean, the problem is we don't watch bad shows, so it's like
It's also true.
we gotta find one that's like so off-putting that she won't get sucked in.
What you do is every time she walks around, just put on Trailer Park Boys. You know.
Oh.
We usually throw on anime to kind of like get her turned off. TV watching.
It's fair. Especially if they have to read stuff.
Yeah, that's the end of my list.
Jay, what about you?
Well, Aaron, like you said, Twin Peaks kind of took over my TV life for a good bit of the last few months. But one thing I have watched recently is Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal on
So
HBO.
you're into Nathan Fielder. Ooh, I'm very
Yeah.
fascinated about this. Did you watch Nathan for You?
Yeah, I love Nathan for
Oh
You.
my God. Tell me what your thoughts are on The Rehearsal.
The Rehearsal is I oh I don't want to undersell it. It is the best television show I've seen since Chernobyl.
Oh, damn.
Like no hyperbole. It I just watched the finale episode just a couple hours ago before we recorded this episode now, and I cried. I laughed. Like no exaggeration. The emotions that show brought out of me, no show has in really recent memory. And it's really hard to describe what the show is without like kind
Breaking
of
it.
like giving anything away, even though it's not really like there's spoilers to it. It's just so difficult to
It's worth a
describe.
watch. You just say just worth a watch.
Yeah, absolutely worth your time.
I have to say, that is one of the most miraculous monotone Canadians I've ever seen.
I'm surprised to hear that here you're aware of Nathan for You, given
Dude.
that I mean cringe comedy, right?
Well, hold on. Let's break some things down for a second, because I'm a huge fan of John Benjamin. Okay.
Yeah.
John Benjamin Has a Van was one of those early weird shows on Comedy Central that was like just a sketch comedy show that had no point, was irreverent, didn't really, put too much effort into it, and it was hilarious. And Nathan Fielder was just like a dude on it. He was the sound guy holding the microphone in every scene, right?
Okay.
And so that's where I first met Nathan Fielder. And then he gets Nathan for You, and like one of the first episodes is whenever he's doing the interview, and John Benjamin is telling him what to say in the interview, and it's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious, right?
Yes.
So yes, there is a lot of cringe, and I definitely have to kind of put my hands in front of my face at times and scream. But again, I watched through the entire fucking Office, and is there anything more cringe than that? Like
Ooh, especially early
like
seasons.
So I can do it. I watch Curb. I've seen all the seasons of Curb, and there's a lot of cringe there. It's just that it's not that cringe comedy is my favorite style of comedy. I think there's other things that are funnier. But if it's good, if it's well done, especially with like Nathan Fielder stuff, is brilliant, because it's the type of cringe that's like The Office cringe is awful because it let it hang too long, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like Nathan Fielder, it's like cringe, rip the Band-Aid off. Yeah, this is poo yogurt. Poo flavored yogurt. What's it taste like? Doesn't taste good. Oh. Like it doesn't hang. Like it's all right, let's go to the next bit. So I don't know. It is cringy, but it's one of those things where it doesn't leave me like saying like fucking change the channel. Fucking
Sure.
Can we move past it?
Well, I will double down on this claim, and
Okay.
I will say that not only is this the best show I've seen since Chernobyl, it's the most Lynchian thing I've seen since Twin Peaks.
Interesting.
Now, the only thing I've seen between those two is Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. So
it's an interesting choice.
But Nathan Fielder's work, I feel like he's in some ways a surrealist, but he goes about it in a very different way.
Yes.
He's creating these surreal situations in real life and then exaggerating them for comedic effect.
Yep.
It's genius, and I love it.
It is. It's the dumb Starbucks effect, right? Like that's a surreal, very surreal project.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the different things that he goes through, like the experience, his experience is also like part of what's fun to watch about it, right? Because he creates this narrative around it, and that is what really drives everything. So I think he's brilliant. So that I'm definitely, that's on my to-do list now.
If I'd known that, I would have recommended this to you a very long time ago. But I kept saying, "Oh, it's cringe comedy. I don't know if that's going to be Aaron's thing." So I'm very excited to hear if we can update this some point on your thoughts on The Rehearsal.
It will be watched by the time we do the next show. I'll just throw that down.
Fantastic. Well, let's pivot to the 23rd century, gentlemen, if you'll join me.
Mm-hmm. Make it so.
I'm already there. I touch a time crystal.
After Tony has consulted with the Klingons on Borath, we take a journey on the Starship Enterprise in Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And this is a show on Paramount Plus. It's new this year, 2022. And we are following Captain Pike, the predecessor to the more famous Captain Kirk, on the bridge of the Enterprise. And we have some short story arcs, but this show is mostly episodic in a way
traditional Star Trek style.
Exactly, that Star Trek was up until 2017 with the birth of New Trek and Star Trek Discovery. Before we get into it, I wanted to ask you guys about the opening credits, the opening theme segment. I personally am a huge fan of opening theme segments for shows in general. So there's 10 episodes of this show. I was curious to know, how many times did you skip the opening credits?
I would not have skipped it once. Christy skipped it anytime that she got the remote.
Tony?
I did not want to skip it once. I actually really enjoyed it. I felt it was very nostalgic. I felt that it nailed the feeling of Star Trek. I liked the little homage to the original song with the very end of the Theramune coming in, at the very, very, very end of the intro. So I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was great. But there was just I think we had some time crunches. So we were like, hey, let's just jump past it.
Sure.
Or she was like, jump past it. So, but was it different every time? I didn't pay attention close enough to see if there were changes to it.
No, there weren't. It was the same.
Okay.
Tony?
But I'd probably say like half. Like we skipped probably half the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I always watch every intro at least once. But in true Tony fashion, I did a lot of binging, so I was on that skip button pretty hard. So I remember liking it, but I don't think I watched it since the first one or two episodes. But I can confession to make, I haven't seen like any Star Trek, any of like the original, the first TV shows or the movies, or I basically have only ever seen like the new reboot movies. So I'm like a total Star Trek newbie. So I'm gonna have to let y'all carry the pod pretty hard.
I grew up watching
connections.
I grew up watching Next Generation on UPN whenever I was home from school sick. I remember watching all the Star Trek movies in the Next Generation era, like the one, like was it First Contact and Insurgent, and can't remember, there was a third one, right? What was the other one?
I think there were four.
I remember watching all of them. I remember that was like a thing that that was like, oh, these are Star Trek movies, you should see these. And so I watched them. They were all very entertaining at the time. Mm-hmm. And so that was my real experience with Star Trek growing up. I've seen some of the old classic episodes, but that wasn't my bag. I will say overall, Star Trek's not really my flavor of sci-fi, mainly because when I look at our world, it's very hard for me to see how we get to that one. But I do find there was something that like always blows my mind when I come back to Star Trek is the teleporters, because I'm pretty sure the teleporters were just created because of saving on scene cuts, but like them just like teleporting places, it always kind of jars me because there's so many sci-fi shows where you gotta fly everywhere.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It was a budget thing where they didn't have the budget to show the ship landing on the new planet every episode. So transporter, and I don't think we really got a lot of shuttlecraft in this show, but whenever you saw characters going on a shuttlecraft, you knew that shuttlecraft was going to crash or get lost, because otherwise they'd just be using the transporter.
Mm-hmm. No, I will say the beginning was a little jarring, having not watched Discovery. Like I was a little bit lost when we got started, But after that first episode, like you said, it kind of kicked into the episodic style, and it didn't. Once I knew who the characters were, it was fine. I did like that this was like I did a little research of my own, and I saw that the original Star Trek pilot for the 1960 series was Captain Pike, and the pilot didn't get picked up, and the actor quit, and so they had to rewrite the pilot for Kirk, and they just wrote into the lore in a later episode that Pike was the previous captain, and so I thought that was actually kind of cool. Now you have this whole like series that's an offshoot of a failed pilot, basically.
Yeah, the pilot you speak of, the Cage, is as it's known, it was not broadcast until like 1985, 1988. You know, the first time that the American public saw this show, it was William Shatner and James Kirk. The Cage, it just wasn't shown, and so it gained this almost mythic quality. And I'm so glad that they were able to flesh out the character of Captain Pike in the show in this way. But I do apologize if I if I left you without information to start the show with, because I can tend to rhapsodize sometimes, and I didn't want to deluge anybody with too much information. So I just thought, you know what?
It was fine. I had to do a little bit of like you gave a little bit of context after I asked the question, like, is this kind of starting in a weird place? And after that, it didn't really matter. It didn't make me kind of more curious about that series. But it was just one of those things where I was like, oh, what's happening? Oh, Spock and Uhura. But what else is happening? Right. Like I just felt very discombobulated in that first episode. I will say, was it who's Battelle? Was that the one that Pike was hooking up with? His
captain girlfriend? Yeah,
his captain girlfriend. That is an actress who is in Letterkenny as one of the a side character. I just thought that was really funny. We were sitting there, and Christy's like, "That's so and so from Letterkenny," and I was like, "No, it's not." And she's right.
That's really funny you say that, because this show and all New Trek is produced in Canada.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so a remark that my favorite Star Trek podcast made long ago was that a lot of the side characters and the background characters are a who's who of Canadian actors that just aren't really known in America.
Well, there's one. She's actually like, it's really funny because she plays a really outlandish character who's married to an even more outlandish character. So it's really over the top, ridiculous sequences that they're in. And here she's like super proper and serious. So it was really one of those moments I was like, it's not even the same person.
That's very funny. Because I've enjoyed it because old Trek was obviously primarily produced in Los Angeles, much like everything made up until about 2010. And this new wave of Trek is made in Canada. So rather than the run-of-the-mill planet they land on being generic desert or mountain, it's more foresty in a lot of the other shows. And I don't know if we really saw that in Strange New Worlds here, but the change in production location, you can feel it a little bit in a way that's fun.
I will also say something that just visually I have to give props to the show is that every single sequence felt cinematic. From the intro to the, almost every episode, the visuals of the show felt stunning. In a way, it captured the essence of the 1970s feel in the technology, without making it feel gimmicky or like shitty. Like it felt nice and technologically cool while still having kind of a 70s vibe. Like it's like the precursor to the actual Enterprise. So I really liked a lot of the aesthetics of the show. Like I couldn't get past how much that I'd be staring at like these sequences of just like, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah, everything looked like crazy high quality. I'm like, this show must have a pretty good budget for set design and everything. the sets and the doors and the outfits and everything. Just like, yeah, good CG for the planets and everything.
And also just the thematic elements of the story. As someone who watched Next Generation, a lot of it reminded me of just generic, not like generic, but just like Star Trekian feels.
Yeah.
Right? Like the whole episode with the book and the doctor, where the
Yeah.
entity like brings his daughter out of the buffer and all that stuff happens. Did that not feel very Q-ish to a degree? Like
100%. 100%. Yeah.
So there were those type of episodes to me are quintessentially Star Trek, and those are the types of things I remember seeing as a kid growing up in Star Trek shows that made Star Trek interesting and unique. So I really enjoyed the feel that the show elicited.
Yeah, New Trek started in 2017 with Star Trek Discovery, and Star Trek had been off the air since I want to say about 2003, 2004, after Star Trek Enterprise went off the air, and that was a oh, excuse me. It was a dud. It was terrible.
Didn't it have? I remember it had like an actor that I was like, why did they choose him as the main actor in it?
Scott Bakula of Quantum Leap fame.
Yeah, it just felt like that was a weird choice.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Hardcore Star Trek fans will defend anything, and there is a subset of the fandom that says that Enterprise is unfairly derided, so that it was bad at first, people switched off, and it got better later. I don't know. I didn't stick around for it. But New Trek launches in 2017, and I have a really specific memory of the day that it launched because I was actually with Tony. We were in the airport lounge in Hong Kong waiting for a flight, and it was one of those weird things where it was an overnight flight, and it was like midnight in America and yada yada yada. And New Trek up until this point has been much more similar to what you would expect out of a new show on FX or Hulu or whatever. It's not at all what we saw in Strange New Worlds. The tone and the story arcs just completely different style. And Strange New Worlds is a return to what I wanted all along from when Star Trek came back. So this show pleased me immensely for that reason.
I also really liked the introductions of the Romulans. That whole last sequence, bringing back the time crystal, the callback. It and Chrissy even pointed out, she was like, they did it better than Tokyo Vice in making the beginning sequence relevant. And I was like, yeah, like this actually felt like a nice payoff of looping back around to something that kind of kicked off our story. I feel like the one thing I would have maybe wished that they would have done is to maybe show a little bit more of him going to the planet and seeing the time crystal, because that was such a huge impact on the story. Not having that sequence, just little flashbacks of what he saw there was a little bit challenging, but they did explain it, which was nice. I also liked the number one, the hair. Christopher Pike's hair. What a hairstylist he must have. That amazing. Was intense.
Like whoever did the hair for the show should get an Oscar. And this wasn't even a feature film. This was a television show. But the hair in this show was incredible.
All right. And did you Google Pasta Mama? I just want to know, did you Google Pasta Mama?
I did not. Did you?
I did. I couldn't find this whole Pasta Mama thing outside of other references to the Star Trek episode, other than like a brand. So I struggled to verify his little story there.
Well, I wonder if that's just a family thing, or it's also like what he describes is essentially carbonara, but without the bacon or the pancetta.
Mm-hmm.
So like it sounds delicious.
It sounds like something that his mama made, and he's just like said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this in this episode." Christy also was like, "Why is he using a skillet to cook pasta?"
Well, yeah, that's how you make a carbonara. You boil the noodles, of course, but then you put it in the pan to combine it with the sauce.
Yeah, but he was cooking it with the egg in the pan.
Yeah, man, that's how you make carbonara.
I guess so. I don't know. I don't make carbonara though. I don't make pastas.
Well, Chef Pike was incredible. The episode where they were basically doing the briefing while he was cooking breakfast for everybody. Amazing. Because Captain Pike's vibe, his whole command style, it's very different from what we've seen from Starfleet captains in the past. And for me, it worked so well. He was just so, I don't know if I want to use the word charming, because that's not really what
charming.
it was.
No, he was charming, but it wasn't an insidious charm, right? Like it was. Yeah. It's like the good guy, the one. I don't know how to explain this, but almost like it really reminded me of a football coach in a weird way, like a really endearing coach that like knows how to tell you a good joke, knows how to make a good meal, has the insight, has seen tough stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but in a weird way, he felt like the football coach of the show.
Like when Dale Cooper was at his investigative and collaborative best. Like there was some similarity there with Captain Pike, I thought.
One other kind of weird cameo cameo that I thought was interesting. There's a show called The Librarians that Rebecca Romijn, I guess at the time when she was Rebecca Romijn Stamos, was in. The redheaded lady that was apparently Pike's old flame in that one episode where they sacrifice the kid. Yeah. She was a co-star in that show with Rebecca Romijn Stamos.
Okay.
Or Rebecca Romijn. So I thought that was interesting, like the different little cameos that were in there of people who were in different shows with people. So that was cool. But also, I guess I don't know a whole lot of deep lore about Star Trek. And so I was curious about two things. One, the Gorn. Do they predate this? Or are they a new species or new bad guy that's been retconned into Star Trek? And two, I can't remember their name, but the race that Rebecca Romijn was that does the genetic modifications, is that also the Illyrian? Yeah. Are they also a part of the lore of Star Trek, or is that like new retcon content? Okay,
so caveat here for all of the internet pedants of the future who will flame me when I'm wrong about things. My fandom of Star Trek is primarily 90s forward, so I don't really know a lot about the original series. However, Gorn #1, Gorn were featured in the original series in one of the episodes that's maybe known the best outside of Star Trek fandom, because it's the one, if you've ever seen pictures of Captain Kirk fighting a lizard.
Okay.
That's the Gorn.
Okay.
It's a pretty silly episode where they get tangled up, and this higher alien consciousness says, "Oh, like captain of your ship has to fight the captain of that ship." Hence why Kirk has to fight a lizard. But yeah, that's the Gorn.
Okay.
That comes from the original series. The Illyrians, I think, also come from the original series as well.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% on that one.
Well, they were just things that I didn't ever remember hearing, and I remember the episode with like the was it La'an that had the Gorn attack that she survived.
Yeah.
Her
Alien, the Alien movie.
Yeah, the whole, like her whole story. They did a really good job making the Gorn feeling very scary. The whole sequence with the blind flying and the dwarf star, like that was really very good. I thought that was very cool. It made the Gorn feel very, very intense. The scene on the Frost planet with the Gorn, babies or infants, that was very intense. But like when I'm watching that, I'm like, how are these lizard things flying ships? Like I started like really questioning why these feral things got so technologically advanced as I was watching. It just didn't feel like that an entity or being like that would give two shits about going to space or be able to work together to be able to develop the technology to do so. So there was kind of a disconnect for me on that. Whenever like we had that Gorn episode, I was like, I don't see how we get from A to B. And I guess maybe that's a lore issue. Maybe that's just maybe a little more explaining needs to be done. But what about you, Jay? What how did you feel about that?
No, that's fair. I had similar thoughts. The Gorn are really not one of the fleshed out species like the Romulans or the Klingons. But I think the headcanon is basically that the Gorn that we see in the second episode on the Frost planet, they're babies and juveniles and fighting each other. And that the Gorn that we see on the ship that we never actually see in the earlier episode, those are the adults. So I think at some point the adults come by and pick up the juvenile and train it, I guess. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, kind of like what Aaron's saying. It's like, why? It sounds like she's saying an adult Gorn would just like wipe everybody out no matter what the technology you had. So it's like, why would they need to? I guess the need to hunt is so powerful. That's why they developed space travel. Aaron, I don't know.
It just didn't feel like just like knowing what we know about intelligent species and stuff like that. I feel like it didn't make sense. That I didn't find like it felt like it was a good homage, but that I just didn't find it. I didn't see that as making a whole lot of sense as to why. Because especially if they are able to do that, why would they you saw them killing each other right off the bat, right?
Right.
Why would they trust an adult that comes like, all right, children, you've proven that Lord of the Flies, the book, still works. So now you can join our society. They just fucking weird.
Oh, Gatekeeper Gorn.
Gatekeeper Gorn.
If that can be a recurring character going forward, I would love that.
I have a question related to Aaron's questions regarding the lore, because I don't really know I don't know like the original series or anything, but like, is there something in Discovery or the original series that says I'm supposed to care about Spock and Nurse Chapel? Because like the show, I'm like, I don't really like, why do I? There's no connection I feel between these characters, and like I'm guessing it's setting it up to be like a love triangle, like Spock's gonna fall for Nurse Chapel, and I'm like, why do I like? Is there something in Discovery that happened before this show that gives him more of a connection? Because this show did not give me anything to believe like why they would care about each other at all.
Do Vulcans not have a similar, I guess, genitalia to humans? Because when they were like, oh, my betrothed has been researching human, mating sequences. I was like, why you need to research that? Like, don't you already have a half human, half Vulcan person in the story? Like, we already know that something must have worked together. So
they've already been doing it like in multiple episodes. Maybe it's all in the mind. They just mind meld.
That's what I didn't understand. I was like, I'm not feeling there's a whole lot of context as to put your head together, but are y'all just like holding your fingers together? And that's Vulcan intimacy. And she's like, oh, but there's also, we just happen to have, sex parts as well for fun. I was a little bit thrown by some of the way that was handled. Because I was like, what's going on?
Amazing. All of that is amazing. So, Aaron, you actually hit the nail on the head there. When Vulcans have sex, it's called pon farr.
Okay.
And they literally rub their fingers against each other's fingers. And that's it. We actually see this in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. So... Oh, I'm sorry. That was
and I'm not trying to be crass, but like, is it like kin down there for a normal like Vulcan? Like, do they have a need for genitals? Like that is the next kind of question. Right. And at that point, how does Spock look down there? That gets real weird now when it's half and half.
I want to know, like, do they lay eggs? How do they get children? If there's no insemination process, like,
I think this is all part of the suspension of disbelief that you need when entering the Star Trek worlds, where all of these different races, the humans and Vulcans and Romulans and Klingons and Cardassians, and 90% of the species that we meet are what they refer to often as humanoids.
Yeah.
In that they're based, it's played by a human actor, and it's not a blob of goo like we see on the Orville. There is an episode of The Next Generation where they kind of tie that together and imply that all of these different races do share a common ancestor who planted their DNA throughout the galaxy, but yada yada yada. That's whatever. But fair question. Like you're absolutely right that if Spock is half human and half Vulcan, there had to be some, and specifically his mother is the human.
Yeah.
So there had to be human biology, human sexuality at some point. So fair point.
And again,
yeah,
I'm not
like,
trying.
his
I'm not
human
trying to be
mom's not
crass.
getting pregnant by rubbing fingers together.
That's not happening. That's not how DNA works with you.
It might get her ready to get pregnant, but it's not
I was gonna say, like, did someone just like tell the Vulcans, hey, we the way babies are made is you rub your fingers together, and it's like wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And as for Spock and Nurse Chapel was not in Discovery. She was on the original series. And as far as I know, there was definitely not any romantic connection between them on the original series. And my thoughts are exactly with you on that subject. Basically, anytime that you try to set up a love triangle, oh God, kill me now.
I've seen more scenes, like interactions, to where, like, why does she like him and why would he be tempted by her? Like, basically, like, they just have like a couple interactions where he asks her for advice, and then now we're supposed to believe that they've liked each other for a long time, is what the vibe I get.
That's some kiss there at the end, right?
Yeah, it's a good kiss.
Well, did the performance sell it for you? I agree with you that I think that the writing of that relationship was poor and rushed and forced, but did the chemistry with the performance sell it for you?
I don't really know why nurses exist in Star Trek, so I question her existence in the show in the first place. Like, the Doctor, with the infinite technology that he has, apparently, like, it seems to be able to handle everything. Like her purpose, I thought she was another Doctor. I was like, oh, okay. And then they were like Nurse Chapel. I was like, oh, okay. That, I guess that makes sense. It doesn't really matter. But I don't know. To me, I felt like what was weird about it was like, oh, well, Spock's half human, so then that means he has to have complex human emotions. And the only way to really like explore that would for him to have some type of situation where he would have to address like feelings for another human or having feelings develop between him and a human. And so I feel like the goal here is not so much love triangle as opposed to attempting to explore Spock's emotions. And I think that's reinforced by the kind of ending where he lets his rage out and he struggles to kind of rebottle it. I think that's kind of a thematic element that they may be trying to explore. I think Spock is seen as very stoic, very Vulcan most of the time. I think that if you asked 9 times out of 10 people on the street if Spock is a Vulcan or half human, half Vulcan, they would think he was Vulcan.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So I think that with regards to that, this show opens up an opportunity to explore the humanity of Spock in a way that has never really been explored. And perhaps that's just one of the ways that they're doing it. And with that, I don't fault them for that. But again, I think that you also gets to what you just said. There's a little bit of suspension of disbelief with regards to how this universe works.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, are all the series is kind of like like this is sci-fi, and I guess sci-fi is fantasy and everything, but like has there always been I feel like there was a big element of like faith might be too strong a word, but there's like faith, and like I feel like it's science, but it's also like not religious, but has there always been that kind of aspect in the shows too?
There's an honor code demonstrated by it, I would argue.
Well, I think maybe what that makes me think of is the second episode about the comets, where the comet is going to hit the planets and the Enterprise is going to move it, but then the Guardian comes out, and they initially accuse the Guardian of being a zealot, but eventually you kind of shift your point of view and you understand it from a different angle. That's kind of how that was 100% Star Trekky in the way that Aaron was talking about earlier. In the way that an episode would initially have you think that you have the moral high ground against somebody being unreasonable, being a zealot, but it brings you around to their point of view, and while at the end you leave still disagreeing with their position, you understand them better. That's always very much been Star Trekky, and I think we got a little bit of that in the "they're going to kill the kid" episode, but you did not end up agreeing with the people on that one.
No, but I think that that's an important. I mean, just looking at the current climate in our culture, we need more perspectivism. We need more shows that offer differing perspectives and don't not just two, but maybe three and four at times, and show that there can be and also maybe sometimes can't be resolution in these situations. I think that one of my favorite episodes of the entire series was the one where the the aliens that are joining or thinking about joining the Federation, and I cannot remember the name of them, but they had the radical empathy. And when and each time they talked to someone differently, they reflected how they saw the world. That episode and Pike's way of handling that, I thought that was just really brilliant. Like he saw what it was that they were looking for, and he was able to provide that. And that was something that just our society in general could benefit from understanding better.
Yeah, the killing the kid episode didn't really hit hard for me because I was like, if it didn't come right after the, well, not probably not right after, but like just one or two episodes before, Pike literally made the same decision to seal the bulkhead doors to prevent the implosion of the whole ship to save the crew, and it ended up being causing the death of one of his crewmates. And then he's like getting all upset about these people sacrificing one child to save the whole planet. And I was like, you just literally did the same thing like 2 hours ago as far as me watching the show. So it was
But
kind of like,
but Tony, wouldn't you agree with me that in the situation that Pike was in, it was an emergency situation, whereas the society built on the effective ritual sacrifice of a child to maintain their power structure and their technology, and the zero desire really to change that. That's a little different, right?
yeah, I guess that woman said they've tried literally like everything they've tried has not succeeded, and they've been trying things for years, but this is just what they have to keep doing until they find something, basically.
For sure, but again, that's not an argument I haven't heard by people who shared unsavory opinions in our world.
Yeah, it sounds like we're talking about climate change, right?
Yeah, that's why we've been doing it.
I thought
like
that
to give a show
episode did it.
props
I'm
for.
sorry.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say I'll give the show props for, and maybe that's what the show has always been. Like I said, I haven't watched it, but kind of just like bringing up current events in its storylines, where you can like recognize it. Like, oh, this is about this or whatever.
Oh yeah, Star Trek has always been political. People will try to tell you that it hasn't, and they are wrong.
Yeah.
Like from the '60s, from the outset, this is this is pansexual space communism out here, and there are people who are pretending it's not, and it's whatever. But
It really is with the replicator, with or the synthesizer, like all that. Like the whole idea is that capitalism isn't necessary because there is no scarcity, and with no scarcity, there's no need for obsession with production, and it shifts society to a reputation-based society, and I guess that way you can make pasta mama if you want to. You don't have to.
Yeah.
You could just zap up some spaghetti for evening and never have leftovers, or you could zap up all the ingredients and make your pasta mama. So I wonder if you could zap up day old spaghetti to get your leftover feel, or if you'd have to zap it up and then leave it in your fridge.
I mean, that's
Do they
the
even
preferred
have?
way to. I mean, leftover spaghetti is way worse. I mean, way better than like fresh spaghetti, in my opinion.
A lot again because it soaks up the sauce. But
Yeah.
it's. Sorry, Jay, go ahead.
Well, it's you gotta remember that just as you can get that pasta out of the replicator, when you're done with it, you pop it right back in. So when you're eating replicated food, there are no leftovers.
There's no fridge. Then again, where is this leftovers that Pike had? Because remember, what did she say? We had spaghetti last night, and he said pasta mama is a great way to make your leftovers into a new meal. Like literally, almost word for word, what he said. Where was the fridge in that room?
Oh, yeah, that gets to some technological inconsistencies that Tony and I were actually talking about off mic earlier today, where this show was obviously made close to 60 years after the original show was made.
Yeah.
And so, the original show, we're talking about chunky buttons and switches, like touchscreen. Are you kidding me? Like video screen. Are you kidding me? And so that's one of the differences between original series era and next generation series era, because those are actually 100 years apart in this timeline.
Yeah.
And so one of the differences is in original series era, where we hear for Strange New Worlds, they have what they refer to as matter synthesizers, but they're a little bit squishy on exactly what that means. And we don't really get the replicators of magic box, give me whatever I want to now. That doesn't come along later within this timeline, but
okay, that's fair. That's a fair analysis. I did not know that was the situation. There's always the little quirks about it, right? You know.
I'd say that the two big differences are going to be that, and then the lack of a holodeck, which we still got. Like you said, it felt like a Q episode. It felt like a holodeck episode, but we don't have Q or holodeck yet. So we got a being of pure energy that was able to take over the minds of everybody on the ship.
Basically a demigod.
Yeah. So we got there the same way, just, through a little bit different alien.
Mm-hmm. Now, last time we had talked, you had been watching the final or the New Horizons Orville. Did you by chance finish that?
No, I only watched the first episodes.
Okay. I was really curious if you had any comparisons between the two, since they both are shows that came out this year.
Well, you watched both, so if you did, I'd like to hear yours.
What I will say is that there were elements of the Orville that I enjoyed. I feel like it's too heavy right now. Like they've taken too much of a serious route. With a lot of it, it doesn't feel like a parody anymore. And it feels very modern. This felt very, like, in a way that Tony said, it was dealing with issues that you could see be a emblem for our society or something that our society is dealing with, but it wasn't necessarily on the nose, Like there was a transgender woman as one of the bad guys in the episode, with that one lady who was really going after Spock wearing all the leather straps. And I felt like that was, like, she was portrayed as a woman. She was very androgynous. But like I felt like that was a way of kind of just, in a way, like you said, the pansexual communism, like that felt very in theme for Star Trek to do something like that. Whereas in Orville, there's the Mocklins and there's the monogender race and a lot of the gender discussions, and it's on the nose about gender and gender identity and stuff like that. I feel that that's kind of the Orville's not subtle, and I feel like Star Trek is more classy and subtle, and the Orville feels very brash and immature in that regard still. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but
No, 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about, because New Trek up until now has not been subtle. Discovery is far more in the vein of the Orville, and
okay.
especially in the specific issue of transgender people. It does not veil its criticism of society. It does not veil its ideology or its viewpoint at all. It beats you over the head with it in a way that turned a lot of people off, and honestly, including myself, I gave up on Discovery.
Oh, interesting. What did you feel about the episode with the transgender woman?
Are you talking about the Serene Squall, the pirate captain?
Yeah.
That didn't even register to me that was a transgender person.
Yeah, she's a transgender actress.
Wow.
I did not know that either. Yeah.
Didn't even cross my mind.
I thought it was we were sitting there watching, and I looked at her. There's another transgender actress or person that I watch some YouTube content by, and they just looked very familiar, very androgynous but feminine in a certain sense. And that's how I felt like this actress looked. And so while we were sitting there, I was like, I feel like that may be a transgender actress. And so I looked it up, and yeah, she used to have they and them pronouns, and she recently transitioned to she and her. But I just thought that Star Trek doing that in that setting was a better way of addressing or including the transgender movement into the conversation without bashing you over the head with it.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like it feels like this is kind of the way that representation should be. That it's there. Like it's yeah.
I find we're in a weird state right now in our society with a lot of different things. I definitely think, especially with pop culture, how things evolve is very interesting, because how, I guess, much transgender is in the current conversation in our society. It's hard to evaluate how it's going to be received. I think, and I've been talking with some other people about this, I think subtle is always better. Like if you think back to kind of how like gay representation in media, like it, I don't think it was all just Queer Eye. Like there was like you know what I mean? Like there were shows where there'd be like a gay person, for years before it was more normalized. So to me, I feel like this was a classier, smarter way of going about it, less controversial, maybe less verbal, but at the same time, like you said, representation, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
They have an opportunity to fill these roles and act and be seen, and other people who maybe identify with them have that opportunity to see them in media as well. So
now I'd like to propose what may, if I'm lucky, become a recurring bit, but I'd like to propose a new individual award that we can hand out for each episode. And this award is going to go to the performance, whether that's the actor or the character, it's up to you. Just the performance that pleased you, that tickled you, that Marie Kondo brought you the most joy out of the show. I'm not saying it was the Oscar-worthy performance. It might have been. That's up to you. But just the performance that pleased you the most. And I want to give this award a name. And I'm going to name this the Bobby Award after Mr. Bobby Briggs.
I love it.
So I'll start, and I would like to give my Bobby Award this episode to Lieutenant Ortegas, the feisty helmsman of the Enterprise, who she didn't really get her own episode. She didn't really get her feature this time around. I'm hoping we do get that in season 2. Mm-hmm. But every scene she was in, I thought she stole the show. And loved her energy. If this was a war movie, she was the sassy guy from Brooklyn, which is often my favorite guy in the war movie. So my Bobby Award this episode goes to Lieutenant Ortegas. What about you guys?
This is an interesting question. I'm gonna have to think for just a second, because there were things in the show that I really, really enjoyed, and a lot of it had to do with kind of like sequences. Character-wise, I kind of struggle, because I like I said, I struggled with knowing who people were outside of Spock, or why they mattered. So, you know what? Actually,
Ortega's, she's her character. I don't want to like say her or she if she's not supposed to be, but like she's always referred to as a sir when responding to like orders or like showing respect. And obviously, she has like a boyish like outfit, kind of like style. So like, is she or he supposed to be like we're talking about that one?
I think she's just supposed to be a tomboyish.
Man, I apologize if I've misgendered anybody. That's not my intention.
I don't think that was that situation. I think that you also have to recognize that within just traditional female archetypes, tomboys exist, and they're not necessarily trans men. So I personally think she's just very tomboyish.
Well, it's also
I just noticed that she was always referred to as yes sir, and then in the storybook they made her a male character. Like, well,
it's naval tradition that
everyone's sir.
That you use sir irrespective of gender, but that's also something that 90s Trek taught me, which may not be naval tradition anymore, because the world is very much changing. So as far as I know, sir in a lot of cases can be gender neutral, and much like pronouns, it's up to the individual and what they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I hope, I don't mean any offense to anybody. I apologize if I did.
Same here.
To buy time for Aaron's Bobby character award.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate that,
because I don't have one either. Let me see.
One of the sequences that I think actually I'm going to give my Bobby to a side character, actually.
Okay.
To a very small scene, but the captain of the Romulan ship, whenever his word was broken, and he basically said, I didn't call this in. I'm going to die with honor. I'm going to uphold my traditions, and I want you to know that I did not break my word.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of honor demonstrated in that moment. It reminded me. Sorry.
When he said, Captain Pike won't trust me now.
Yeah.
He really shows you his priorities there.
But it reminded me very much of the British officers and the American officers during the Revolution, how there was a certain concept of respect and decorum with regards to how officers treated each other, right? And I felt like that in a sense, that whole episode I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was great. I little weird to choose poor man's Andrew Garfield for Captain Kirk, but
oh my gosh,
that's fine. But am I wrong there? Like the whole time I could not see Andrew Garfield's face like stapled onto
it's the Vampire Diaries, dude, isn't it?
Yeah,
like super skinny. Is there a reverse Bobby Award? Because I did not enjoy it. I mean, not that he did a bad job, but I was like, I don't.
He didn't feel Kirkish.
No.
Is that the Donna?
The Donna. Yeah, this is the Donna.
No, I don't. It feels like it's Gen Z Captain Kirk, because Gen Z, they don't like the they don't like
masculine
the big
bravado.
guys. they don't like they don't like the bravado. They like the Lando Norris. They like the Andrew Garfield, the slight little Timothy Chalamet.
Man,
Timothy
you know what?
Chalamet.
Pike, like in some scenes, Pike looked a lot like William Shatner. What's his name, Anson? I was like,
Anson Mount, yeah.
Yeah, like he looked a lot like Shatner. I'm like, man, this dude should have been Kirk.
The hair.
It's the hair, yeah. I don't have. I delayed for a long time. I don't know if I have a Bobby award. It was funny to see, I guess, him do a bad English accent as the court like second in command in the fantasy episode with his middle part. So I guess I'll give that was entertaining enough for my Bobby award.
Is anybody familiar with the Britney Spears movie Crossroads?
I am aware of it. I did not personally witness this movie in any way.
Maybe you should sometime, because the lead love interest for Britney Spears in that film is played by Anson Mount, Captain Pike.
That's funny.
Yeah. But if Audrey Horne was my ideal woman, I think Captain Christopher Pike might be my ideal man. Wow.
He's your Jason Statham.
Whoa, I mean, I think it's very much subjective. So if that's,
I'm just saying, I used to love like watching Jason Statham movies. He's just like the dude's dude, right? Like
he'd take care of me. He'd cook me breakfast, and like he'd want to know my opinion.
He'd want to know you.
Is it a requirement to be like? I don't feel like he was womanizing, but I feel like Captain Pike got around kind of like Captain Kirk gets around. Like, is it like a requirement to be a Starfleet captain? Kind of gotta have the women falling all over you.
Well, I mean, if you don't have to, if nothing matters but your reputation in the bedroom gotta get out there, right?
We work to better ourselves.
Right? You gotta get better, right? All about the future, my friend.
I was a little disappointed when he, in the episode where they killed the kid, where he basically went back with his ex there. I didn't want him to do that, but he's got to live his life.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that makes the deep cold of space bearable is love. It's just making love.
Jay, I'm just curious. I feel like we've asked this question before, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Have you watched The Expanse?
Yes, I've watched at least the first season, maybe the second one too. But I need to get back into it because I enjoyed it quite a lot.
So, yeah, you only saw it in the sci-fi era. You didn't see it after when it's transitioned over to Amazon and got the big money.
Correct.
Okay, I think you should watch it. I think you would enjoy it. But I would agree with you. I think that Pike was the best character in the show. Like, Spock was fun. Uhura got a lot of character development, which I thought was good. I really liked Hemmer, or whatever his name was.
Oh, loved Hemmer.
I liked him a lot. I did see why they had him taken out at the end, because they were getting ready for, was it Scotty or whatever, to come in. Wasn't that the engineer on the Enterprise?
Yeah, Scotty.
Yeah.
You hear the Scottish voice at the very end, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I should have seen that coming in that last episode, but or in that episode where he died. But I really liked him. Like, I thought his character was interesting. He was more unique of a character than anyone else in the show, in my opinion. So it was sad to see him go.
Yeah, anytime that you get that character on the crew who talks down to humans in the way that humans talk down to aliens without knowing it, I guess that's what you call microaggressions. Like the way that he says, it's not that my senses compensate for my blindness. My senses are superior to yours. I love that, and his death was affecting for me. I was curious how that played for you guys.
It was moving. I mean, it didn't bring me to tears, but like I just kind of was like, oh, I liked him. I wanted to see if this is. I definitely would say that this is a show that I would watch another season of. Like I thought that they did a good enough job that I would watch more.
Yeah, it's very, very easy to watch. The episode goes by pretty quickly, and it's not like, oh, how much time's left in this episode before it's over.
It was fun. One last bit on Chief Engineer Hammer. The actor who played him himself was blind.
That makes it even better.
Oh.
Did they actually throw the fruit at him?
I hope so. God, that was great.
I have a question about what was the final lesson we were supposed to learn in the season finale, that we should just sometimes run down and kill people? Is that like that we were supposed to take away from that one?
Because Jay's the resident Star Trek expert. I just want to say I felt like it was a very like Greek fate driven kind of ending where your fate is to not be at the helm of the Enterprise, and you can't change that without causing great catastrophe. So this fate is essentially sealed, and so you have to accept your fate, and that's really what I felt like was the lesson of that, was that it wasn't that Pike made the wrong decision, he was the wrong person. And so I took it as you have to accept your fate. You can't change it. You can't intervene. And in that regard, it reminds me very much of the traditional Greek plays like, Oedipus Rex, Antigone, and all that stuff. So that regard, that's how I took it. Now, Jay, am I off? Am I close?
I was very similar in my thoughts to you there, where like what a difficult pill to swallow, where somebody comes from the future, not even somebody, yourself comes from the future and then puts you in the captain's chair of the ship in a pivotal moment in history and says, you're going to fuck this up, and I need you to actually live through that so that you understand the consequences of how bad you fuck this up. But the fact that you weren't in command at all, that's really better for society. So like just the punch to your pride and your ego there is incredible.
And I think that it truly is.
That's a credit to Captain Pike to be able to live through that and understand his place in the machine and to just accept that.
I also think that looking at it from Captain Kirk's perspective and the Romulans, it's understanding your audience too, right? Like in a certain regard, the analysis that Pike was doing was, I want to try and avoid a fight. But in a certain sense, if you don't analyze the situation correctly, like for example, if you're like, you see a bear, you can lay down and play dead to try and avoid, getting eaten, or you can try and make yourself look bigger and scare the bear off, right? If you like run, then that indicates to the bear that it can chase you, right? So you want to send the right signal when you're in danger. And I think that gets back to what the situation was. Pike's instincts here were wrong. And it was in a different situation, in a different scenario, Pike could have brought, the Romulans and the humans to peace, or the Federation to peace. But because it was about testing the strength, the resolve, all that stuff, the signals that he sent were not that of strength. And again, it gets back to their interpretation of strength, not our interpretation of strength. So I think that is the other thing, is that when you're looking at a military or war type situation, you have to think at things at a very different level than if you're just, a soldier on the battlefield.
And if you're in,
the way I think
I'm sorry,
about time travel, these people just keep dying over and over again, basically, right? Like these millions of people, because like how does time travel work here? Like, I'm assuming like a new reality is created every time, and this old Pike that we see here has already gone back, been visited by his future Pike. Like, but each of these like alternate realities, still all these people still die, and these wars still happen. Like, you're
Well,
not actually changing.
So, are you
these
talking
other
Future Man?
realities.
You're talking Future Man
Yeah.
realities?
Yeah, basically. I mean,
like, keep in mind, Star Trek predates Rick and Morty. So, like, time travel before Rick and Morty was much more, there is one timeline and you can affect that back and forth, but it doesn't continue
You're
on.
talking about Back to Future time travel.
Yeah, like if you fix it, you know, like there might be offshoots, but like you can eventually fix it to where it's just one. Was kind of the thinking on time travel up until Rick and Morty. Am I wrong here?
Rick and Morty is
Rick and Morty,
time travel and dimensions, but there's other shows that kind of have toyed with time travel and different ways of viewing it. But I think that the classic time travel analysis is exactly what you're saying, that there's a timeline. There's one timeline. There's not a multiverse of timelines. And when you go forward or back, it's like you're moving the fast forward button, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like a videotape. I think that's a better way of thinking about it. Traditional time travel is more like a videotape. You put it in, you hit play, it's going forward. If you hit rewind, it goes back in time. You hit fast forward, it goes forward in time.
Yeah.
But it's the same tape.
Yeah. And I don't at all mean to say that Rick and Morty invented that idea. Of course not. I think they popularized it to a degree that really hadn't to before, really the multiverse thing. But yeah, as Tony, to get back to what you were saying about, like, you know, do those millions of people die otherwise? I think when we're in the Star Trek franchise, you're not supposed to be thinking in those terms, or you're supposed to assume no, I guess is what I'd say.
You know, there's an episode of the Orville where they tackle a time travel type thing, and the song, the guy that sings the song that you posted, that's why I thought you watched the whole episode, because he sings like 3 songs in that fucking season.
Does he really?
Yeah, like there's like 3 different sequences where he's fucking singing a song. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, I was like really baffled by it. I was like, did you just like get a guitar during the pandemic or some shit? Like, was this your hobby? I had no idea why we were having to be subjected to that. But he has a whole episode where he gets sent back in time to like our time, you know, and he like, you know, meets up with that girl from the previous, you know, episode that he was obsessed with, and marries her, has a kid, and all this stuff, and has a baby on the way. And they go back in time and basically rip him out of time, go back farther, pull him back to the future. And so like all those people cease to exist. That timeline effectively closes, you know? And so like in a weird moral way, like what does that cause? Like, is that like murder when you cause people to cease to exist? When you choose to do that, you know? I think that these are the kind of timeline questions that are fun to explore. I think that Star Trek just doesn't do that.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Well, I have a question about the lore, Jay. I should read it, I guess, because this is an interesting, like, I guess, television/movie universe to like think about. But like, so like obviously humans don't like altered genes. I guess there was a war with like a eugenic war, like with altered humans. So like that's been banned, I guess. And then has AI been banned? Like obviously they have a very sophisticated computer system, but I don't get the vibe that it's actually like an artificial intelligence. Has that been banned too? Like in Dune, like as Dune, I guess they ban AI because it was too dangerous, and they start like editing humans to basically perform the same functions as like crazy mathematical functions like AI, like mentats or whatever. But like, has AI been banned also because it's too dangerous, like genetic modification, or what? Like, is there anything in there?
Not at this point in the timeline. And I think this is a symptom of we talked about this a little bit earlier about new technology in the real world forcing a course correction in Star Trek, where AI really wasn't a thing in the 60s. So that doesn't really play a factor in here. But later on, it really isn't until Star Trek Picard, which came out like 2019,
Yeah, just recently.
Yeah, where that has a whole storyline about synthetic life being banned for reasons, and AI being potentially evil. So I think that's kind of, like you said, kind of a possible plot hole here, where it doesn't really make sense why the technology of 300 years in the future doesn't include something that is becoming more and more basic today in 2022.
Now, with that said, though, we don't have true AI in the sense of like Terminator or Cortana from Halo. Like AI that we have is very much like data set algorithm, and an algorithm that's able to adjust based off of the changing dynamics of the situation. So, I mean, we're still in the rudimentary of what we're calling AI
Right.
in our society.
Right.
Like that Google guy who was like, "It's alive!" Like that guy's just been spending way too much time on a chat bot. Like,
yeah. I mean, once we get to next generation, we've got Data on the bridge. Like he's literally artificial intelligence, and that guy fucks.
He gets it in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he does, with Bing Crosby's granddaughter.
Well,
he probably has attachments.
He is fully functional and programmed in multiple. Oh gosh, yeah. Star Trek is way hornier than people even give it credit for.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, everybody is. That's what Spock is. It's like he's not dealing with his human emotions. His human emotion is being horny. Basically, is what the vibe I'm getting for Dr. Chapel.
Pretty sure that goes back to the ancient days of early humans. So.
I do like how the Romulans, like obviously like Romulus and Remus and Rome, and I liked how like the leader was like the Praetorian or Praetor. I was like, oh, this is kind of a fun little thing.
It's really funny how different pop culture things kind of cross over with each other, because like I'm big Magic the Gathering fan, and Magic's lore goes back to the 90s, and there's clearly like different things that borrow from different stuff, but like there's a whole eugenics war in Magic's history. There's these beings called the Praetors, and so it's really funny like hearing all these different things kind of cross over from different stuff, especially looking to where they're doing these things called universes beyond, where they're bringing in IP from every fucking where into the Magic universe. Like Fortnite, they just announced Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who stuff. I am telling you, within the next year to two, there will be Star Trek Magic the Gathering cards coming out. I have no doubt in my mind that will be announced. So we are living in a weird era where like intellectual property, fandom, nostalgia, all that stuff seems to be crossing over everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And especially if Strange New Worlds hits it off, like there's the new Lord of the Rings TV show that's coming out, right? Well, it's just so happens there's a new Lord of the Rings Magic set coming out. So I have no doubt that that's very timed very well. So it's crazy to me to see how much nerddom has just absolutely dominated pop culture in the end, in a weird way.
Oh yeah, I think maybe do have my dates wrong, but the Game of Thrones show that starts tonight, right? Maybe
I think you're right.
And then Rings of Power, the Lord of the Rings show, like you mentioned, that starts September 1st, just about a week and a half from now. So yeah, like we're kind of this might be peak nerddom moment.
It's something that like me and Chrissy have talked about this a lot. Like even like the next generation, I feel like our generation pioneered a lot of things. Like they're saying that the Zoomers drink on average 15% less. And when they kind of dig into that data, it shows that they don't go out as much to bars to socialize. They would rather get on Discord or on one of their social media apps or whatever and get with their friends digitally than spend money going out, especially with the economic climate. And so, hell, I was like, I've been doing that since Ventrilo was invented, getting on Xbox Live, chatting with friends on Friday night, playing Rainbow Six for 6 hours and passing out in 2 a.m. like to me, it feels very much like each iteration, the things that the nerds latch onto, then just eventually becomes a part of the greater pop culture, the greater cultural like ideas. Think about like I mean, just like was it the Microsoft Teams? Isn't that just like big chat rooms like AOL? Like we're coming full circle back to the early days of the internet.
Pied Piper.
Yeah,
MSN
Piper.
Messenger.
So,
Oh, I'm
well, I guess
excited.
what is our I guess what is our rating emblem for this Star Trekian analysis? Because
Ooh.
we got to have a good one.
Mercury stones.
Mercury stones,
brown
Time
dwarf.
crystals.
time crystals,
Ooh,
bowls
yeah,
of pasta mama.
Oh, bowls of soup. Because Captain Pike, he gets the crew to mutiny on that slave ship because he
That
cooks
was
them
good.
soup.
That was good.
Oh, speaking of which, check out the show Twitter for very funny Seinfeld Star Trek Strange New Worlds crossover memes, if you get my drift.
We be memeing.
Let's go. I would say I like bowls of pasta mama.
Bowls of pasta mama. I was gonna say it's either bowls of pasta mama or just Captain Pike's hair, like isolated and separated from his body.
Well, I'll go first on my rating and review here because it was going to be good. I'm Mr. Star Trek on the show here. It's not the perfect show. I don't think we've really said anything negative about it, but it wasn't Chernobyl. It wasn't the rehearsal. So I'm going to give it an 8 and say that this is my favorite Star Trek show since Star Trek Voyager all the way back in 2000, 2001. So Tony, rating and review, bowls of pasta mama, Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
I'm gonna give it a 7. I think if there was a different 7 bowls of pasta mama, if there's different like ranking for like when the show really is like a fun sci-fi show and like it just goes down so easy, like I think if that's a separate rating, that's like a high, like a 9 or 10, or like I feel like as far as like easily consumed and fun and just a good time where you're not thinking about a ton and just enjoying it, I think it's rates super highly on that scale. But I think as far as the official rating, to kind of keep it in line with all the other shows we've watched and not kind of offset the balance, I'm gonna give it a 7.
I feel very similar to Tony that it was a solid show. It's good. It's entertaining. I think it's building something. As Jay has stated over and over again, that it's kind of a return to form for Star Trek. I think that in a lot of ways, with TV, especially kind of coming through the first wave of the golden age of television that we had. There was a lot of ideas about what makes a good premium television show. And I think for a lot of shows that works, the Westworlds, the Game of Thrones, and things like that. But sometimes having those episodic type stories actually is preferred. Sometimes having too long of a running story can actually be a detriment, and it makes it hard for you to be able to just sit down and enjoy, a story. And so for me, I truly do enjoy these episodic type stories. I think that it's probably the type of Star Trek I would rather be watching. So I'm going to give it a 7 as well. Solid show, worth watching. I wish I'd seen Discovery a little bit, or at least the first 2 seasons. I feel like there would probably be a little bit more caring about the characters on the front end of those first couple of episodes. But even without it, it gives you enough training wheels to explain what's going on as the episodes unfold. So, 7 bowls of pasta mama with extra Parmesan cheese on top.
Love it. All right, we've got a 7 from Tony, 7 from Aaron, and 8 bowls pasta mama from myself. That gives us an average score of 7.3 repeating bowls of pasta mama. And if you guys will vamp for me for a second, I can tell you where that ranks.
Absolutely. Well, as Jay is getting the ranking down, we have decided to do a spooky offering for our next show. So everyone will as put a more Halloween or spooky themed show up for our next Wheel of Names, and I'm going to be pulling that up here after Jay gives us the final rankings for Star Trek: Strange New Worlds.
Star Trek Strange New World, 7.3 repeating ranks. It looks like it's about kind of bottom of the top third. That puts it just below Conrad Detective, just above Jean-Claude Van Johnson.
I love that show.
two shows that I enjoyed quite a lot. So that is good.
I just forgot about Comrade Detective. That was a great time.
I was just talking about Jordache jeans earlier today.
The shows hit some really weird and interesting shows. It's been a great journey. So, all right. Well, then let us move on to the Wheel of Names.
The Wheel of Randomonium, sir?
Yes, the Wheel of Randomonium. I apologize. So we have 3 offerings. We'll start with mine. I have brought to the table Midnight Mass, which is a show I have seen it, but I'm very excited to watch with you guys. It is, I don't want to give too much away, but it is a kind of a glimpse at a very classic horror type story, but in a new twist, is all I'll say. And I think that it is an interesting experience that will elicit a lot of good conversation. So what about you, Jay? What is Wellington Paranormal?
Wellington Paranormal, it's on HBO Max here in the United States. It is a spin-off from What We Do in the Shadows, one of the favorites of the show. Specifically from the What We Do in the Shadows film. It follows the 2 kind of ineffectual cops that you meet in that film. It shows them and the interactions with the paranormal. I haven't watched it. My wife has watched the first episode and said it was right up my alley, and I'm looking forward to it, if it is so deemed by the Wheel of Randomonium.
Tony, you have The Haunting of Hill House.
Yes, good timing. My sister was actually just talking about this show last night, asking me if I'd seen it, so that was lucky for me to have that suggestion in there. I'm reading off Wikipedia. Looks like it's based on a novel of the same name from 1959, and this is like the first entry in The Haunting anthology series. I think Midnight Mass is maybe part of that.
Yeah, so it's Haunting of Hill House was the first one, then The Haunting of Bly Manor, and then Midnight Mass was the third and final movie.
Okay.
They're not there's no connection to story, but it's the same actors in most of them. Like the director kind of liked this troupe of actors, so he uses them in each one.
Okay. This Wikipedia says the plot alternates between 2 timelines following 5 adult siblings whose paranormal experiences at Hill House continue to haunt them in the present day, in flashbacks depicting events leading up to the eventful night in 1992 when the family fled from the mansion.
It's more of a traditional ghost story. So, all right, well, here we go. Let's shuffle it up. And let's spin the wheel of Randomonium.
Spin, 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 spin. Oh, Haunting of Hill House.
This is the best choice that could have gone for Jay.
It was close. It was very close.
I'm excited. I think this is a good choice. It's a quality horror show. So, and I don't think there's less blood than Midnight Mass. That's what I'll say.
And it's on Netflix?
It is on Netflix. I think it's a Netflix original.
Oh.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Well, I will be looking forward to that next time we get together for the show. We, at the top of the show, did not go through our social media call-outs, and I often forget to do that. So check out our social media for news about the show, including our now indefinitely postponed 2022 tour and cruise, along with plenty of other bonus content, including old episodes, including the original season of The Orville. So look out for that. But you can find us online at the Show Pod. You can email us, the Show TV podcast at gmail.com. On YouTube, you can find our channel there, Mandamus Radio. You got to do it. You can find me individually at Jay Suespante. Aaron, where can we find you?
At Tenacious Aaron on Twitter.
And Tony?
You can find me at tpinquite on Instagram. I'm on Twitter too. I'm trying to think if I'm just tpinquite on there as well. Anyway, Instagram is the only one I post on, so that's where you'll find me.
Well, check us out. Send us messages. Send us your thoughts and your requests for the Wheel of Randomonium. Maybe one day it will deign to pick them. But for today, I wish all of you a live long and prosper. And before we finish, I hope, Aaron, you haven't stopped recording, but we need to do a clap.
I did stop recording right when after you said finished.
Yeah, don't worry about it. So me and Tony, we're going to do a clap. You ready?
Yep.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, sorry, Aaron. Tony. You know what? I should probably stop the Skype recording.
I'll start doing that from now on. I'll wait and do a clap at the end as well.
Just if it's a long one, like I guess I do it on